And then Miss Katrina and Dr. Nangandank, you're welcome to take it away when you're ready. I'm sure Rachel will be joining us soon.
Thank you. So, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Nangandank.
Go ahead. We're probably going to say the same thing. So Katrina, you take it away. I'll jump in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining our subgroup, and just really wanted to kind of bring us back in together and touch base on the what's missing link, if you will, for our recommendation. But first wanted to make sure everyone had seen the minutes and had no changes to those minutes. Hearing none, I think we will ask for them to be accepted.
I can make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Lieutenant Mays, we see you.
Seconds.
The other attachment that was sent out with the agenda today included a consulting report that the state DMHA had conducted in 2020, and this is really, the credit goes to our division director, not to myself, when he said, hold on, don't we have that in the report? And I was like, yeah, we really don't need to recreate the wheel when we have a lot of the same recommendations in each of the intercepts using that sequential intercept model. So I really wanted everyone just to kind of come together, look at what we had in comparison to the consulting, and obviously hear your feedback. And I know, Ray, you're on a short time frame, so I'd like to give you the floor before we dive into that discussion, so that you can share the content that you had sent to the subgroup of your opinions and insights. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much, Katrina. First and foremost, believe it or not, I do have a concern concerning Justin Beatty portraying being a veteran to receive some training in the behavioral health field, but yet he's not a veteran. And that is concerning to me and to quite a few other veterans who I have the honor to engage and work with. And I have another concern.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So sorry about that. The other concern I have is I do have the honor to be on a national platform. And that national platform, I'm a member of the board of directors with NAMI, the national board. And one thing that it has not become a joke yet, but it is concerning. Indiana has 92 counties. Yes, the sequential intercept model is a great thing, but there is no one or two that will be or should be taken as the be all the end all. Okay. I will still say again, we need to adopt the Stepping Up initiative, because I'm more than sure that more than 3 counties in the state of Indiana has mental health issues going on.
None of us will argue that.
So what I am proposing is that right along with CIT, of which I just did a presentation yesterday with Hendricks County. I'm scheduled to do Bartholomew County next month. That right along with CIT, of which I'm also scheduled to be a state conference keynote speaker in Tennessee, of all places, should be here in Indiana. But that we adopt Stepping Up right along with it, and make it a concerted issue to get the whole state involved.
Okay. And you know,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. We do have in our Intercept 1 recommendation draft right now to use the Stepping Up initiative in tandem with CIT. So we really appreciate your insights there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I agree with that. I mean, anything, as we all know, the earlier in the intercept we can help people, the better. So that's just right at that beginning stages, which is what we want. So, and looking at those two models, they really can go hand in hand pretty well. So absolutely, we'll keep that recommendation in there.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. And unfortunately, me myself, I suffered a very, very long duration of undiagnosed psychosis. And I'm not crying about it. It is what it is, but that's okay. By the grace of God and treatment and effort on my part, look at where I'm at now.
Absolutely. You're an inspiration, Ray, and we appreciate your insights.
Thank you. Thank you all for all you do.
And I think everyone here was at the full commission meeting, right? So I think everyone heard the recommendations there. And I think on the agenda too, with looking at Intercept 2, I think that does probably, we would do want to look at that today, see if there's other recommendations we can fill in there. I feel like we have pretty good recommendations at the other intercepts, but are there things that people are seeing that we've missed that we need to make sure we include? And I guess the other question is, does everyone remember what we did and recommended? We could probably find those slides and pull them up too, if that would be helpful.
We do have those, I'm sure, that we can share. I know that
Katrina, would you, and Dr. Nangendink, would you like the other document, not necessarily the slides, but the one that we made up that was of the with the overlaid with the narrative of the intercept models? Do you want that up? Okay.
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I think we're always trying to balance this idea of, I think all of us could probably have like 20 recommendations at each intercept, but trying to really narrow down and make those core recommendations so that we can pass those through, or at least attempt to get those passed through. But I definitely want to make sure that we revisit and just make sure we're not missing something. So thank you, Elaine, for putting that up there.
That's very helpful.
So tell me when to scroll down.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, so intercept 0, I think that part we've deferred to a different committee because that's their focus. So that's easy. But of course we agree with those findings as well. And intercept 1, this is what we were talking about with the CIT and in tandem with stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the CIT training, I really do feel like the recommendations are important for, what is being trained. Is it, sticking close to the well-studied model, so we make sure we're doing it well, and then also this ongoing competency to make sure that this knowledge continues. So I like the emphasis there, and I think we were trying to get every county right with a CIT, at least ability to be trained. Yeah, all counties. Okay, so in that intercept, any thoughts? Anything else that we need to add in or think about adding in?
Do we think that like mobile crisis units or community-based crisis response teams would lay nicely in this intercept as well?
I think that's more the intercept 0, that community. Yeah, so I think that's where that piece comes in. Although, I mean, there's obviously some like bleed over between the two there.
There are.
And
So go ahead. I'm sorry, Ray.
please forgive me. I'm not aware if you great people are aware of the fact that more and more police agencies are moving away from police responding to mental health crisis.
Yes, absolutely. You are correct. And I think that's where those crisis, the Intercept Zero, where we have social workers, crisis specialists, heading out instead of the police. So that's part of that initial response. But absolutely right. Thank you.
You're welcome, Doc.
All right. I'm assuming we're good here. So thanks, Elaine. So Intercept 2, I think that one of the American Psychiatric Association, there's like top 5 of recommendations of sort of looking at this intercept between psychiatry and the law is that screening. So they consider screening actually the number 1 important factor. And so this is after people have been booked into jail. And I don't know, and maybe someone can fill me in, I'm not sure if we have anything we do now, any standard. Where I worked in Michigan and Washtenaw County, we used the brief jail mental health screen. So everyone who was being booked in, the officers would deliver that to everybody. And then depending on the scoring, they would be referred on for an assessment if needed. It's just a very basic, easy 2-minute screen. So I don't know if we want to include something like that in here. It's evidence-based also. So that's why we were using it. Or if there's other thoughts of what we need to add into the Intercept 2. So this is, that initial detention and the initial court hearings.
Well, I think the regional concept, the regional treatment centers, that is an important component of this Intercept as far as coordinating the courts and the community mental health centers, and really just information sharing. And I think that's probably where we see a lot of areas where we could improve, especially in some of the rural communities where we need the community mental health centers and the sheriffs working collectively together in meeting the needs of those individuals. And that may be from a screening tool that may initiate the call.
I wholeheartedly concur, Katrina. And plus also, I'm kind of sure that you great people are well aware that the biggest support that anyone can have experiencing a mental health crisis is their family. With a regional aspect, at least the family would not be put out too much to check on their loved ones.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ray.
I totally agree. I'm not sure how to proceed with the idea of regional treatment centers. I've been in a number of conversations about it with the administration, with legislators. There's a lot of interest in it, but obviously it's a heavy lift. And so I'm not sure where to go with it, but I think there is a lot of interest and certainly an alternative to what we have now, which is no treatment or inadequate treatment in jails.
Well, Steve, I would like to bring one up on that accord, and hopefully you can take it back to the administrator. Fortunately, I was a patient at Beatty Memorial Hospital, which today is Westville Correctional Facility. So what I'd like to propose is, just like the Beatty Memorial Hospital was transferred over to the state and became a correctional facility, why not a correctional facility be transferred over to DMHA and become a regional mental health center?
That actually was discussed a few years back.
Yeah, it
Thank
is
you.
interesting, if you think about some other states and what they're doing. Michigan has the Center for Forensic Psychiatry, so everything there is all in one place. So that's a maximum security psychiatric hospital. And it's a really different model, right? So people who, a lot of people there are, incompetency on trial, not guilty by reason of insanity, but then there's a population there that just needs treatment, and they're still officially incarcerated, but they're getting treatment at an inpatient psych hospital. And, they have a court right there. So the judge can actually come into the facility and hold court. And it was, a pretty neat model. So there's some things to think about. I think you're right, though, Steve, these are big changes and big asks. And, the question is how do we want to make a recommendation that we think can move that at least forward?
So Christine, I think what you're saying is kind of what a lot of the mental health advocates, when they say regional treatment center, that's what they're thinking. So would it be possible? So I'm asking a question. I'm not trying to lead you in a direction, but is there an appropriate person that we could invite to a committee meeting from Michigan via Zoom and get information about lessons learned, things they do well, things that didn't work well, cost savings? Is that possible?
Good question. Let me find out. I had worked at the Center for Forensic Psychiatry for a couple of years. And so I still have contacts up there. So I will, let me reach out and see. Right.
And Steve,
Yeah.
I have reached out to Michigan as well to go do a site visit. I'm still waiting on their response. I gave them some dates because, again, same thought is let's go to the subject matter experts and see if we can get some additional information about how they made this happen. And of course, I also would love to hear from Lieutenant Mays or Sheriff Nielsen about kind of what do you need at this intercept when someone immediately comes into your jail? What works best for you all? Do you have that resource in your communities, or what would be the dream, I guess, of the next step for you from the law enforcement lens upon booking someone?
Well, I know that here, at least here in Allen County, we have a community-based mental health facility. It's called Park Center. It was taken over by the Parkview Health. It kind of fell under their umbrella, and I don't know what all went with that, whether it was funding issues or whatnot. But we've had for long period of time that I'm aware of, that if someone came in at booking that was experiencing mental health crisis or suicidal ideations, things like that, that they were put on suicide watch, so that as far as within the jail, they were monitored a lot closer than what an individual might normally be. And then they were also, Park Center was contacted and someone came into the jail to do an assessment. Now, we've been fortunate enough here, and I'm involved with, we've got Judge Andrew Williams, who is now taking over the mental health court for Allen County, as Judge Dave Avery is looking to retire. I'm not sure exactly when, but the ball has kind of shifted more toward Judge Williams. And we're actually doing kind of a mini version of our state mental health task force kind of thing, just here strictly within Allen County. And we've got members of Lutheran Hospital, Parkview Hospital, the jail nursing staff, and representative from NAMI that are on Judge Williams' local board, that we discuss a lot of the same kind of things, and we're focusing on Allen County. So we're looking to see, when someone's coming in, do they have a practitioner in place? And one of the questions that popped up was HIPAA, because the jail nursing staff was having trouble reaching out and getting information on someone who may not have been receptive to volunteering that information and booking, but they were familiar to the jail staff as someone who has been there, has had a mental health problem, and what are we going to do while they're there? If it was possible to get them released OR, and maybe through a channel through the mental health court to monitor them. Sometimes they're looking at ways to make sure they stay compliant with the medications that they're supposed to be on, not only so that they, in the event that they have to stay in trial, but if they're released OR, are they going to go back out and then resume the same activities that got them in trouble and into the jail system, the criminal justice side of things to begin with. We've had up here a standard practice since I've been a part of CIT that the misdemeanors, a mental health issue, but will trump the misdemeanor, but a felony is going to trump the mental health issue, and usually that's our public intoxication, disorderly conduct, trespassing type charges. We kind of set those aside and get the person the mental health treatment, get them in possibly on a 24-hour IDO before they even see the jail. So once they make it into there, then the crime has got to be something that's going to need to be addressed, but they also need to be able to make sure that from a mental health standpoint, they stay healthy while they're incarcerated.
So if I can add on to that, if you don't mind, I think it's important for everybody to understand that not all sheriff's offices are alike. So it sounds like we're not treating the proper people the proper way, and that's not true. There's a lot of sheriffs across the state and across the country that are doing everything they can to try to think out of the box and make sure that they take care of those that come in here under emotional distress, come into our facilities. And Ray is right into the fact that we've got to look at this to make sure that we continue what we're doing on this commission to push that out to the rest of the sheriffs, because some sheriffs believe that it's a problem and some sheriffs don't. And it all depends on who's the elected sheriff, right? What I want to say is that in Boone County, we're in the middle right now of looking at a $50 million expansion. And that $50 million expansion isn't focused on incarceration, it's focused on rehabilitation and mental health. So we are even taken to the point where when we do a pre-intake area, before they even come to the jail, so that we can still bill insurance and those types of things, doing those evaluations before they even break the threshold into the secured area of the jail, and trying to get them help. We have over 130 hours, 160 hours of mental health therapy inside our facility a week. And we started off when I became sheriff with none. So we know that it's a problem. We know that the jails are the pseudo mental health institutions. It's those people that are suffering from the chronic mental illness is where we have a problem taking care of them, because not even the current therapists that we have, and we have Cummins, we have Aspire, and we have Inwell all working in my facility, and we just can't handle some of those people, and trying to get them to the point where we can either calm them down here or get them into a facility, which is almost really hard to do, a state facility. That is really where we have our problems. But from a sheriff's office perspective and from a jail perspective, there's a lot of jails that are doing some really, really good, innovative things out there. And part of that too, you talk about Michigan, we worked with them to do what we call IRODs. So we are actually scanning these people and looking at these people when they come in, and it automatically emails whether they have a mental health issue, whether they have some type of addiction issue, and gets them the right sources when they're here. So we're doing a lot of good things. I want to make sure that we don't gloss over that, right? I think it's so important for us to understand that. But those critical those folks that are mentally critical is really our biggest issue that we can't handle in our local jails. And I'll be honest with you, even the Department of Corrections can't handle them. And I don't know what to do there. But we do a good job of trying to take care of it. Most of the sheriffs across the state.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And of course, you know, Boone County and Allen County, you all have done a great job in taking care of your region and really working collaboratively. And I know there are many, many more in Indiana doing that. So I appreciate that feedback. And I see Elaine has the screener on the, oh, well, or
Yeah.
somebody has the screener.
I took over screen sharing. Yeah, and thanks to you both for those comments. I absolutely agree with that. And it is really, you know, especially with the chronically, you know, persistent people with mental illness is a real challenge. I saw that in the women's prison when I was there as well. And it's just not a place we can treat people as they need to be treated. I just want to show everyone this. And, you know, one of the things that Ray had talked about is that sort of a misdiagnosis. And that's one thing that, you know, we want to make sure that we are screening as much as we can so that we are not missing diagnoses. Now, people may deny symptoms and may have them, and that may come out later. And then, you know, sometimes people, for example, with psychosis can have, you know, what we call very quiet psychosis. So it's not always those people who are actively hallucinating, and you can see that. Sometimes people are just very withdrawn and having psychosis, but you wouldn't know. And sometimes in the correction system, it's those individuals who are overlooked because they're not causing any problems, right, within the jail or prison. So the screening aspect, I think, is pretty important. So I just wanted to show everyone this so you all knew what I was talking about. It's again, it's meant to be done by the officers when someone is initially incarcerated. And it's just, you know, it touches on psychosis, it touches on depressive symptoms. What I like about it too, because sometimes people, you know, especially when you're first incarcerated, it's, you know, don't always want to share real personal things when you're being booked in, I'm sure. But some of these other ones, which are just a little easier, are you taking medication? Have you ever been in a hospital? You know, so there's a couple different ways that someone might be picked up. And then, you know, it kind of gets to an interesting point. What I found is what sometimes I would see once the officers, we really train the officers on how to do this in a very just matter of fact, right, way. Because sometimes officers initially felt a little uncomfortable asking some of these questions. So it was just, you know, just read it off. Matter of fact, it's the easiest way to do it. But what we found is sometimes the people who said all these, but there's just something that the officers were picking up on. They got to the point where they would just make a comment down here and say, you know, answered negative, but could we do an assessment? You know, so they're picking up on something. Anyway, so it's really a super easy screen, just one of the ones out there, but it's one that we found was particularly helpful. So just wanted to share that, and we can send that out too, so everyone has it.
Thank you. So I think as far as Intercept 2 goes, what we really need to do is find the appropriate language that, and Steve, you may have this, no pressure. You know, we've already had these discussions about regional treatment centers, and I think it also lines nicely with what law enforcement has shared with us as well. There are a lot of people doing good things, and it always comes from that local level and those local relationships. I don't think it's something we personally can mandate from the state and get the buy-in, because then we're so far removed from some of those outlying counties, but making that recommendation and finding the language to get the support, and whether that support is funding streams or otherwise, that's just kind of what I am feeling, but I am open to everyone else's suggestions there and how we really outline what our commission recommendation will be surrounding regional treatment centers.
I mean, I don't know like how many more meetings you're going to have, so I'm going to defer to you guys on process. But
Okay.
I think there are a couple of options. If we found somebody that we think would be really informative from Michigan and helpful, we could have them present at part of one of these meetings, dedicate a meeting to it, have a subcommittee of this committee that focuses on it. I mean, we could theoretically even invite them to the full commission meeting if we thought there'd be interest. And so I don't know. So I don't know if the goal would be to figure something out prior to our end date, or just to put something in there for our end date. But I think at this point, it would be appropriate to say that the committee would like to investigate and from expertise in other states, utilization and possible implementation of regional treatment centers in Indiana or something like that.
Thanks, Steve. When can someone remind me, when do we have to have our final recommendations to the full commission?
I think we were shooting for the end of the year to have those so that they could start preparing those at the first of the 22 calendar year.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
don't
that's what I
quote me
remember.
on that.
I remember something like that, so that sounds about right.
Any more discussion on Intercept 2? I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Okay. So moving into Intercept 3, is there anything else we would like to add as far as our recommendations? The only thing that I had on Intercept 3 noted that we hadn't really touched upon was the formularies and aligning the formularies, because we also see that across the continuum of care, and maybe we toss that to the continuum of care, but we see it on both entry points. So if I discharge someone from the state psychiatric hospital into the community and their meds get changed because cost, insurance, whatever the barrier is, or the formularies aren't aligning if they're returning to jail on an ICST competency restoration stay, then they decompensate with the med change because the formularies are not aligned at all. And they end up back in this vicious cycle. And that may be something totally unrealistic. I know I kind of think about what Sheriff Nielsen said about there's 92 counties in these 91 different jails. You know, would it even be realistic to align formularies? But in an ideal world, it would certainly help that continuum flow.
Yeah, I think, and then, you know, if we could ever get Medicaid, right, pushed through, because the majority of people, at least with severe and persistent mental illness, have Medicaid. And that formulary is wide open pretty much, right? So we're able to prescribe all sorts of great medications. I mean, there just came out, I don't know if you all know about this one, but there's now a every 6 month long acting injectable form of Invega. I mean, it's wonderful, right? It's, if someone's reluctant to take medications, if they'll just take an injection every 6 months, they can stay covered through that whole time. But the cost is phenomenal, right? Medicaid will cover it. But as far as, you know, if Medicaid is not covering it, it's going to be impossible for jails to be able to afford that type of medication. But I can just think about the benefit, right? If people take nothing else, right? If they have that injection every 6 months, we're going to be able to keep them stable. So I don't have an answer. That was just a kind of a thought about, boy, you know, if we could get that Medicaid funding in jail and in prison, we would be in good shape.
Well, and I think that's our entire recommendation for Intercept 4 is let's make that happen.
I mean, so we're making recommendations here, and yes, we want them to be realistic, and yes, we want to implement them. But in terms of what our goals are, I mean, could we not say that we'd like the formulary in the criminal justice system to match the Medicaid system, and then tie it to the statement in 4 about the 1115 waiver. And then in 4, when we talk about the 1115 waiver, we could say, and we want to make sure that the formulary in the criminal justice system lines up with the Medicaid system. You know, if it seems like that would be a good strategy.
Yes, I like that strategy, Steve. Thank you. I absolutely agree with that.
Outstanding. Does anyone have anything else on this intercept? All right. Well, we opened the gate to this already with the alignment of formularies. So I don't know if we need to be more specific with, we just said collaborate with CMHCs, and I wasn't sure if we needed to fluff that up anymore or if it was fine as that is written.
I think our intention was to collaborate, but also recommend the CMHCs be the main treatment providers, right, within corrections. So we might need to just be more specific with that.
Okay.
And then if that's not possible, then that collaboration for reentry is important.
Oh, absolutely. Just
think
to
that's-
have.
Sorry, yeah, so I think that's where that piece is, but I think having the more a specific recommendation, if possible, to have a CMHC treatment providers within the correctional system.
And I think we can highlight successes in many counties that have that relationship and that collaborative, like we discussed earlier. The proof is in the pudding, if you will. We've seen this work in areas where close collaboration is occurring. I know specifically Vanderburgh has our jail pilot program, works very closely with the state psychiatric hospital and the CMHC, and really seeing great results down there in Vanderburgh County.
Is there any room here in your mind for, instead of CMHCs, CCBHCs?
Yes, I think, either one, right, depending on what the county has. CCBHCs obviously have a even broader range of treatment options. So I think we might even just want to add that language, right? CMHC/CCBHCs.
I mean, again, this is I'm trying to work at it at both ends. We want to encourage CCBHCs, but it's also true that they're going to be able to do more in this realm, and if there's a way to connect those dots, that would make sense.
I like the way you're thinking, Steve. Thank you with connecting these dots. I think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it just kind of brings everything together, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, and honestly, since Adult and Child has received the CCBHC designation, the expanded services for our mobile crisis team has been phenomenal. I mean, we've already made an impact that we couldn't make at all before. So absolutely, including that's a great idea.
Well, if we wanted to get really wild and crazy in terms of dot connection, we could go back to, I guess it'd be Intercept 1 and link in 988 and CCBHCs in that regard as well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think the more I'm not good at this, so I'm glad, Steve, that you're good at this. The more you can connect all these dots together, I think the easier it is to put it together in a comprehensive model.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on Intercept 4?
The only thing I can think of is wait time, in the continuum. We don't want folks to have to wait, let's say 6 weeks to get a med appointment coming out of a jail. That's problematic as well. And maybe that goes in with, that just collaborative approach is making sure that the provider's already invested and they can get them an appointment in a timely fashion.
Yeah. I mean, what I would love to see at some point, and this is sort of probably, well, I don't know, I'll just say it. So for for people coming out of the hospital, we are required to see that patient within 7 days of discharge. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had the same requirement for people coming out of the criminal justice system, right? To have a 7-day, and it doesn't have to be a 7-day full psychiatric evaluation, but a 7-day touch base with the intake person or who, someone in the CMHC or CCDHC. So I think that actually makes a lot of sense, because if you lose someone for 6 weeks, you're not probably going to get them back, into treatment.
Well, and I will say this too, in our MAP program, we've had, since April of 2020, we've had 139 people go through our medical assisted treatment program where we're issuing buprenorphine in our facility. We've seen out of that number, and I like 3 years worth of data, but we've went from a 47% recidivism rate down to a 17% recidivism rate on those 139 people that's been through that program. But what we do is when they leave our facility, they have a 5-day bridge over script for that buprenorphine. So they have to see that provider in that for that continuing medication and therapy within 5 days in order to continue on. And our success rate has been very, very very good since we've been able to provide that bridge script. But you've got to get that continuity of care out there, and you've got to be able to stay on top of them. And the recovery coaches are real good about holding their hand when they leave and being able to do that. So I couldn't agree with you more, Doc. We've got to make sure that they get there within 5 to 7 days in order to continue that care.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I think if we tie together or connect the dots to that Medicaid coverage, then we could have those same expectations that are set for a hospital. So that's fascinating and fabulous.
Well, our DMHA is paying for those medications. We're paying for them up front. They're reimbursing us through a $4 million grant through the Indiana Sheriff's Association. My concern is how are we going to pay for that when the money runs out, right? Is sustainability. We've got to figure out that sustainability so we can continue on these programs in our jails. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to provide these programs.
You're right. Absolutely. So we have to strengthen our recommendation about this Medicaid continuing, because I think that's where we're going to see the greatest change. And your data is a great baseline for that argument, if you will, of why we know this is effective. It's a good data point to share the story of success. Anything else that we need to touch on? We only got about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we at least hit the last intercept.
Yeah, I think we can also include in there the CMHCs, / CCDHCs. So that's good to incorporate that. And then I think for the recidivism, I mean, Sheriff Nielsen just, said they're keeping some, which is great, right? So maybe we could say limited data currently kept, because it sounds like there is some that we can actually utilize, right? Maybe make it a standardized recommendation for data, for recidivism data. But that's amazing. And with Sheriff Nielsen's data, that really speaks to being able to continue right, is going to speak to shareholders and everyone else saying, okay, this is making a difference, not just for people, but, from a monetary standpoint as well. So just appreciate that recidivism data.
Did we have, and I'm not remembering that we did, but I know we all believe it, essentially enough, the requirements here, or the recommendations here in terms of peer support in preparation of reentry, it also makes sense, and I don't know if it would be intercepts 1 or 2, but when somebody first gets too involved in the criminal justice system, wouldn't it also make sense to have peer supports that can try to help them receive services and hopefully divert them from the system altogether? Or even if they are entered into the system, make sure that they have appropriate benefits, kind of like what Sheriff Nielsen was saying they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? I mean, can we make that recommendation? Because I think you can recommend forensic peer supports at every intercept.
True.
To help kind of, help all along the process. So that's a very good point.
So Steve, tell me, just for my own knowledge, when a person is trained in peer, I mean, obviously I understand like the peer recovery coaching from the addiction lens, but if we're talking about forensic peer recovery, is there a specific training that they need, or that we could recommend funding for training additional peer supports?
Yeah, so there's actually now a forensic endorsement to the recovery coach training that is now available, and we could definitely recommend that those people receive that certification or that endorsement.
Okay, great. And Amy just put that DMHA does have that forensic training in the chat, so I appreciate that too, Amy. Kind of sad I didn't know that, huh?
It's new. Now I will tell you one of my recommendations for a while, and I've been unsuccessful, but to me, whether it be providers or peers, there ought to be a forensic reimbursement bump. We have trouble with providers that don't want to work with this population, and there is specialized knowledge, and in many ways it is very difficult. And so I always thought there'd be logic to have a reimbursement add-on, but I don't know if we want to get into reimbursement issues or not, but that'll be my comment for consideration in the future.
I agree. I mean, we have this separation within the state psychiatric hospital system of our direct care that is at Logansport are called special attendants because they have additional training in forensics.
Yep.
And then every other hospital has a BHRA classification. So I could certainly advocate with you alongside that argument, Steve.
Thanks.
So the goal is to have our recommendations cleaned up by the end of the year. And I think after today's discussion, we can go in and make some drafts to our document and then send it back out for final feedback. Obviously, the holidays start this weekend. Officially, the holiday season, I think, kicks off with Halloween, right? So it's going to be a busy time and a run to the end of the calendar year. But I think we can come up with a draft after today with more intentional verbiage in our recommendations and get that out in November and have a full approval back by December. Is that a fair timeline for everyone?
Yeah, that sounds very good.
And I'm happy to work alongside the DMHA team in getting the verbiage together from today's meeting. It's also nice because we have these transcripts and minutes that we can refer back to clean this up and then send out for final input from all members of the subcommittee.
Sounds wonderful. Any last comments in our last couple minutes?
Sorry, Elaine here, just clarifying, are we feeling like you're going to shore up the recommendations in preparation for the December meeting just via email communication and things like that? There's no need to put another one of these on the books, just while I have captive audience, just making sure.
I think so. I think we're pretty good. I mean, if something comes up, with the email and we have some sort of big issue, we could always kind of convene, but I think unless Katrina, you have a different thought, I think we're pretty good to do this via email.
I would agree.
Lovely, thank you.
I just want to thank everyone again. I just, every time we have one of these meetings, like this, like hope just grows in my soul. I'm just like, oh, this is so wonderful. So I just appreciate everyone's experience and feedback, and just, it's wonderful. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. Can I ask a dumb question? What's the date of the December meeting? I want to make sure that I have it.
Steve, that's not booked yet. Jay is in the process of confirming with Senator Kreider, so he can also be available.
Okay, well then it wasn't a dumb question.
No, not at all.
Not
Not
at
at
all.
all. Our last update was that it's all in the works, and we should have a hold on everyone's calendar as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I appreciate you asking that question, Steve. Thanks.
All right, I think we are good. Thanks as always to Elaine and everyone helping us with the logistics of all this. So, all right, and then we will reach out via email.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Have
Thanks.
a great
Bye-bye.
rest of your day. Bye.
Right.